Jeffrey Dahmer soaked in blood. The Unabomber blowing up. Waco, Texas, and Heaven's Gates. Aliens modified, meant for apes. JFK shot in the head by the CIA. Bigfoot and the Mothman. Son of Sam talking to dogs again. Witches, ghosts, and goblins. Mysterious noise and hauntings. Dark arts in the skull and bones. Most celebrities are probably cloned. So if you're feeling all alone, crack a beer and get stoned. I welcome you to the podcast Strange Brew. We're here to entertain you. We're here to entertain you.
It's about to get strange.
Welcome, everybody, back to the show. Welcome. I'm one of your hosts, Tomcat, a.k.a. Tom Thompson, the Reptilian. You can find my music on all music platforms. I'm very excited for this episode. Can you introduce yourself, sir?
Yeah, hi, everybody. My name is Steven D. Kelley, and I'm probably most known right now for the Occupy the Getty movement.
That's awesome. It's great. So for the people that don't know what Occupy the Getty is, can you give them just like a brief summary?
Yeah, we'll dive right into that. First of all, thank you for having me, first of all. And gosh, it looks like you got a pretty good operation going on here. Anyway, I'm really appreciating any chance I get to spread this message. But okay, let me just start with introducing myself before I tell you about the mission. Okay. All right. You know, I had to write a book about this stuff because it's so complex. And so if you want the book, you send me an email, lost17gun@aol.com. I'll give you the whole book.
Awesome.
Or you can put it in the messages down there. But basically, I got involved with the CIA. First of all, I got involved in really high technology, lasers and stuff. And I'm a jeweler and I'm all these things. But it turned out Daddy was a secret agent kind of thing. And I got started messing around with CIA back in Saddam Hussein stuff.
That's crazy.
And eventually that turned into Iran-Contra type stuff and Oliver North stuff. And right before I got hooked up to the NSA, which I didn't know was the NSA, my dad, he gave me his blessings that he died. And but I made lasers for the NSA essentially. And it turned out that it was really the Intertel Mafia. Okay, so I was working for a guy named Vesco, who was like the #1 mafia in the world, and his boss was his #2 guy was a guy named Don Nixon, and Don Nixon was the guy that brought my brother and me into all this stuff. But because of my laser stuff and my microphotolithography stuff and all this other crazy engineering and stuff that I would get into, Star Wars type stuff.
The weapon systems.
Yeah. We attracted a lot of attention of the CIA. We just always assumed that was what the deal was, they were interested in the lasers and stuff. But it turned out that it was more of a bloodline thing, and that's all part of this story, of course, because they're very interested in all that. Very, very, very interested in all
blood
that.
specifically too.
Yeah. All that. And also people with psychic skills and this kind of thing. But they also have a legacy system. So once Daddy never got out of the CIA, and I thought he was out of it. He never was out of it, but I don't even call it the CIA. It was a branch of the State Department, but it was, whatever.
Technically, right?
Yeah. It was they hide behind all kinds of different names. CIA is a euphemism for all kinds of stuff. But anyway, so they have a legacy system, so the kids are kind of falling into it automatically, sort of a deal.
Well, you see that within the music industry too, with the amount of artists that have connections to the CIA and stuff, like Dave Grohl and like Jack Black and all these people that have connections to their parents were working for the government.
Let me see, Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin, Laurel Canyon, which is right next door to Jared Leto's new house, Lookout Mountain, which is where the CIA and the Air Force and the government filmed all their secret propaganda videos, and which is also where they film a lot of snuff films, which is directly connected to the Getty by tunnel. P. Diddy, Playboy Mansion, all that crap. We'll get into all that fun stuff.
I'm so excited. Just as a question too, since we're into lasers, right? You obviously there is direct energy weapons that use lasers.
I was involved in that stuff. Sure, I got invited to directed energy weapon conferences and stuff like that.
It's so crazy because it's quite clear. Like I'm Canadian. I live in the terrible land of Canada. It's communist pretty much now. It's a socialist country, and they were definitely starting those fires. Either like with lasers in Alberta and BC and stuff like that. But there was tons of video footage of them intentionally driving by with ATVs and stuff and just like flamethrowing sides of and they always say it's for like controlled fires, but I do not believe that.
Oops.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Oops. I made a mistake. Yeah. The Mafia says that a lot. I'm going to be bringing that up. I got a show tonight. Like I said, right after I told you off the camera, but I'm just for your listeners. I do a lot of show. I do a show every Thursday, but this show here is going to be really big because I'm going after some really nasty people. I'll be saying names, and I'm going to be spelling out an entire mafia money laundering slush fund operation involving the state of California and one particular county that involves Gavin Newsom and Gordon Getty.
Of course.
It's millions and millions and millions of dollars. It's billions of dollars, and these guys. There's human trafficking going on. There's adrenochrome. There's pedo parties. I mean, I got the names, and I'm going to be talking about this stuff. And it goes all the way up to, it goes up to Gavin Newsom, but it goes down to every level of county government. I haven't even gotten to the city stuff. I'm going to ignore the city. County
I might have to have you back on after we dive into this in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, assuming they don't try to kill me in the next, like I said, 10. October 15th, I'm expecting them to try to make a move on me. We're on November 15th. Yeah. I'm expecting them to make a move on me.
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen in good faith. Let's hope.
I just dodged a bullet because I'm dealing with a hardcore with the Mafia and the Masons right now from, Las Vegas, Florida, Cleveland. Oh, and you know that whole Tate's thing? I was involved in that too, kind of.
So if you want to break down for all the people, even like the Getty and why even these people would be after you. You know
all right. I mean? Well, okay. Back to this whole spy stuff. All right. Just suffice it to say, they've been trying to get me out, like to Area 51 and do all these things, and they always know more about you. They know what you're going to do years before you do it, which is crazy. But it got down. A lot of different characters led up to me learning about this stuff. Like after I got out of the CIA or an NSA thing, which I went to war with them essentially, and not many people actually can say that, right? But I did, and they lost. And that's when I hooked up to the Billy Meyer crowd, and I got turned on all this UFO stuff. If you can look up Billy Meyer.
Yeah. I would actually like to cover him on a show at some point because it's interesting. It's an interesting case.
Well, I was really heavy into that. And again, I was a skeptic. I didn't believe any of this UFO stuff, but I filed everything away. Because the NSA teaches you that. You file everything away. But they had me doing stuff. And the thing was that I was providing security, but I was also technical advisor because microphotography, and it's essentially alien technology. All right, so basically I was dabbling in a bunch of alien technology, and this gets their attention. As soon as you start doing stuff like that, they're in the bushes. Seriously, they're following you around. It's really bad
because they're doing reverse engineering and stuff with a lot of the.
Well, yeah, that's what they wanted me for. They wanted me to see this. I made the mistake of figuring out how they build these beam ships. And it's crazy because I'm a jeweler, so I messed with silver, and I developed this process using silver to make jewelry for Neiman Marcus. It's funny story. I made a bunch of money doing that, but I realized that process could be used to make these beam ships. And so I offered it to the public, and lo and behold, my first customer was the University of Colorado, which was working on beam ship light-speed propulsion using silver. Big surprise, right?
Yeah.
So, so they were really interested in me. But the Getty thing, just try to cut to the chase here because I know when I listen to these recordings, I ramble. But
we all do it.
That's why you got to cut me off. Say, damn it, say this. But all right, I'll go straight to the Getty. I had all this experience with all these different handlers and people trying to get to me and all this UFO crap, and so I really knew what was going on with NSA, CIA, and all that crap. I had been recruited many times. So my brother has this friend who was a friend with this other guy who was being recruited to become the trust fund manager of the Getty. And just like us, he had this Masonic background. He was like in a legacy system and all that. But as this process was going on, he reported everything, and I basically debriefed him on all this stuff and told him, what was going on. and we had kind of a connection to him. So as he got really deep into the stuff, this is when we really knew what was going on. But I kind of figured it out beforehand. But in other words, it's like the day we found out about the bunker, everything changed with our relationship with the people at the Getty.
So
Okay.
for like the Canadian listeners might not know, but the Getty is a museum.
Yeah.
So I'll it's actually
What-
pretty massive. I'll bring it up.
Well,
It's pretty
let me
long.
just say this about the museum. First of all, the Getty Foundation, it's really a foundation. Okay, so when I talk about the trust fund manager, I'm talking about the trust fund manager of the foundation. It's the richest museum foundation in the world by a large margin. Okay, that's more
That's
money
massive.
than the Louvre or L'Hermitage or whatever. So basically, this is the most expensive museum in the world, and they don't really
Looks
talk
like
about
it.
the price. Well, it's that thing right there. Yeah,
Yeah.
it costs. They don't really know what it costs, but I'm thinking it probably costs somewhere between 12, a little around 12 billion, probably I would say.
Yeah.
But they'll tell you it costs like 7, 6, something like that. It's BS. And that thing that you see on the ground right there,
Yeah.
the entire structure. Well, yeah, just pull that up just for a second so people can see. Okay, well, it's up on the top of a hill. As you can see, the 405 freeway is down there. This is up pretty high. The only way you can get up to this thing is by taking a tram. There's no parking. But the underground, there's 2 levels of underground. There's a basement, and then there's the bunker. Now, the basement is 6 floors deep. It has a roof, a concrete roof, that it's the largest concrete pour ever, single pour. And I'm not talking about the Hoover Dam now. I'm talking about, they had trucks lined up to pour the concrete for this thing. So it's a bomb shelter, but it has 6 floors, and the size of the floors, the square footage of these floors, is larger than the space of this entire thing that you see here. Okay, so in other words, if this is on a sloping hill, the lowest levels of the basement will be about the same level as that freeway down there, and not too far from the ground. I met a guy that was a Caltrans engineer, and he was drilling into the side of the hill down below there, and they came out and told him to stop because he was drilling into the side of their basement. One of their buildings. Yeah, that's like so. And I'll tell you, you can't see it in this picture, but there is a ventilation system that has 3 fans that are forcing air into this thing, and each fan blade, I would say, is at least 5 meters diameter. Okay,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
huge. It's huge. Now, what's that all about, right? What I mean, that's pretty significant. So that alone. Now, if you ask them, and if you confront them about the bunker, they'll say, "Oh, well, yeah, we got this basement, and it's a bomb shelter because we got it filled with art and all that stuff." But the real bunker, you have to take an elevator down to, and the elevator goes down a mile. Okay, it goes down below sea level. See, this thing's just so much level above sea level, so to speak, and the real bunker's way down below that thing. And that's when you've ever heard of Allie Carter. That's what she's talking about. She's not talking about the basement where they store the art. She's talking about the deep, deep bunker. And of course, this is the thing that we need to access. Well, we need to expose. That's what this mission is all about. It's not about, everyone thinks that this mission is, we're going to storm the Getty and we're going to break down the doors and we're going to rescue those children. No. These people have nuclear bombs scattered all over the world, and like this building right here is one of the key places that they plan to actually blow up. And one of our jobs is, Occupy the Getty, is to find this damn bomb where they hide it. But the thing is that if we ever, as they say in the protocols of learned elders of Zion, rise up, pitchfork in hand.
I'll be covering that actually next week. It's going to be a long episode.
Well, yeah, it's this stuff here. It's in there. It's in it. There's a whole chapter describing it. And this is what I'm quoting you right now. I'll just quote you the verse. I mean, I'll paraphrase, but basically it says, "What fear do we have of the Goyim rising up against us? None, for we have a secret weapon, the undergrounds, the tunnels, or the undergrounds, metropolitans, the tunnels which we will dig beneath their cities, which, should they ever rise up pitchfork in hand, we will blow up into the air with all their archives and treasures or something like that, records.
Well,
So,
they've just definitely destroyed certain parts of history and stuff like that, right? And you see these underground tunnels, like recently in Brooklyn with the fucking Jews crawling out of the tunnel with the bloodstained mattress and high chairs. It's fucked, man.
Yeah. Don't look at that. Again, I see that's the other beauty of the Occupy the Getty mission is I don't really. When I came into this thing, that verse that I gave you. I quoted it to one of these guys that was trying to be my handler.
Yeah.
And he freaked out. And he immediately broke, probably mentally. The guy turned out to be an alien. I found out he was a Draco later. But he broke and started saying that, no, we're not all Jews. We're also Nazis, and we're at least half Nazis. That's what he said.
Mm-hmm. Weird.
And I kind of like, that broke me. I that screwed with my head really bad.
Yeah, because now there's a lot of people now that are pointing like, oh, the nationalists were like good people, but I've even got an episode eventually ready to go about how they were connected to the Rothschilds. So like,
yeah,
it's all the same. It's all the same thing, right? It's like it is this weird thing where they're like, they believe everybody, especially in the people that are awake in the truther community, whatever you want to call it. They believe that like everyone's been gotten to and everyone is has a hand shoved up their ass and is a puppet, but yet Hitler wasn't because of this and that. Yeah. But yet I think that maybe he started off as someone good and then kind of got manipulated.
Everything's like an episode of Star Wars, like Attack of the Clones. When they had to make their own enemy. Zionism and Bolshevism and all that are pretty much the same thing. And the Illuminati was created by Joseph Weishaupt, Amschel Meyer Rothschild, and who's the other idiot? Oh, Jacob Frank. Okay. Yeah. Jacob Frank, the false messiah. Okay. The one is like, the basis of so much stuff. We're not going to get into that. But the point is
I have an episode about the Frankist coming, so all the audience knows. It's wild shit, too.
But there's two kinds of Franks, bear in mind. There's the Frankists, who are the false messiah people. Yeah. And then there are the European Frankists, which are the Charlemagne people. Mm-hmm. Now, it's hard to separate the two because the Charlemagne is a big deal to these people. In fact, if you want to understand how these guys operate, you need to understand the Magna Carta and go back to King John and all that, because that's where all this stuff started. Yeah. And it's really just a big mafia, and this mafia goes back to the Magna Carta because that was the original sit down between all the mob bosses, Vatican, whoever, right? And they got down and decided to work together, and that's the Magna Carta.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting episode.
And they're still doing it. I mean, it's like Templars and all that. They never went away.
Yeah.
The guys with the red cross on them and all that, they're bankers now. They're the guys that run the Getty.
Yeah.
And if you have any trouble understanding that the Jews and the Nazis are the same thing, go look in Ukraine.
Oh, yeah.
Go look at Ukraine. It's run by Zelensky, Jew guy. It's funded by the Jews. It's all the Jewish oligarchs funded. It's the basis of operation.
It's a child trafficking hub, too.
Oh, yeah, but it's the Jewish mafia. It's the Khazarian mafia. That's where it was born.
Yeah, we covered that, too. That shit's wild.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, too, right? Because you have, what's the Azov? The Azov battalion.
Azov brigade, yeah.
Yeah, they're like wearing swastikas and shit like that.
They don't hide it. They don't hide it.
It's
and ISIS is in there helping them fight,
It's all planned. And you bring up the nukes thing is interesting too, because then they have the Samson option, which is if Israel is their existence is threatened, they quote unquote will destroy the world with their nukes.
Oh yeah, and you know what? We paid for it, just like they did in 9/11.
Well, they stole nukes too.
9/11 was nukes. Those were 3 itty-bitty little nukes that were made in Israel and Dimona, that wonderful place that they killed Kennedy because he wanted it shut down. And we paid for that. That was part of a Reagan-era Star Wars project to create these things. They called them Roman candle nukes. And they were low yield, and that's the whole thing. They wouldn't produce all this, excessive gamma radiation crap. But they still leave a signature, and I've talked to physicists who've taken the samples of those isotopes, and they've identified and traced it all the way back to Dimona.
Of course.
Yeah,
I thought it was C4 or something, but that actually makes
well,
way
they,
more
they
sense.
do everything. Whenever they do something like this, they always use all the tricks in their book. That way, we argue about. No, it was C4. No, it was.
Yeah, I know.
It was whatever
The
thermite. No,
mini
it's
nukes
thermite.
makes more sense to me though.
They've been doing this trick for a long time. Like Flight 800 is a perfect example. It was a missile. It was a laser. It was a bomb on board. No, it was all three.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you something about Flight 800 though, and this came directly from these caver guys. Look, I messed up my hair.
Yeah.
When this guy was being recruited, just to bring it, you love the segue. To bring it back to the Getty, when this guy was being recruited
love
to be
all
the
this.
trust fund manager, we would feed him questions, and he would take these questions and innocently ask them of his handlers. You know, the guys that were higher up, the caver guys. And one of the questions says, "Hey, what's the deal with Flight 800? What happened?" And they go, "Well, we missed the plane that went up before it, so we shot that one instead. We
I heard
overshot."
something about that.
That's what they did.
That's
Oh, I can
crazy.
tell you what it was. You want to talk about do weapons, dude? I'm like, you know what I mean? Pioneering that crap. So
Yeah.
do weapons. The most powerful do weapon we have is probably going to be a charged particle beam, and we do have that working out of New York, Hamptons, on the Montauk. There is a big giant particle accelerator right there. I think it's called Ridgecrest National Laboratories, and it feeds the Camp Hero Montauk underground base, which essentially directs that. So what they do in this type of a weapon, this is like Tesla technology, is they will take a laser, a big giant laser, probably solid state these days, but they'll pulse that beam, you know, which is funny because instead of having continuous beam, they'll pulse it at a target, and then the charged particle beam that, you know, it's in the accelerator spinning around, they go, turn it loose, it goes whoop right up that laser beam, like, you know, Lincoln's, you know, kite, basically, or not Lincoln, Benjamin Franklin's
Yeah.
kite, you know, the key, yeah, I don't know if they teach that anymore, but probably not.
Well, I think his education system is probably communist at this point. I couldn't.
Marxist kids, like,
And it is crazy too, because like the idea of using direct energy weapons, and you see there is footage out there that people can claim is real or not real, but there's definitely video footage, I believe, of these being used, and people want to brush it off as everything's fake and everything. I'm like, I don't know.
I think there's one at the Getty, man. In fact, when you pull up those pictures, there's one, they call it the Cactus Garden, and if you ask me, that thing right, where is it? Go down a little bit. Oh, up. Yeah, there you go. Right there. That thing
weird.
right
Yeah.
there. Okay, you see that round thing right there?
Yeah.
It's like you can't really see it per se, but that thing's big, and those walls are that's like bulletproof. That stuff is armored. So what if something pops up? See this cactus? This is crap. They built that thing just for cactus. Now,
you think like that it like because you see this within movies, and I think they mirror. Yeah. I think fiction mirrors like nonfiction, like that. It's real. It would essentially could either fold in or it just collapses in on itself,
or pop up, and just Okay, well, this is the thing. I have a lot of psychics that work for me. Okay, I mean I have my little Jedi army, which is basically just a bunch of psychics or remote viewers or whatever, special people.
This isn't weird at all.
No, that's not weird at all. But hey,
for all listeners, it's like a little voice.
Dude, I was in the laser business, and I made secret weapons for these people, and then they asked me to fight aliens, and I'm like, oh, we can't do that. That's not going to work. What works? You know what works? Psychic skills. That's what works. So it's like, forget the lasers. I'm all about this psychic stuff, and I'll tell you, these CIA guys and these spooks, these Getty people, they think that if you don't believe in the stuff, and if you don't have any psychic skills whatsoever, you're like an animal. That's another level of elitism.
Yeah, I just had a chick named Elizabeth April on, and she's like believes that she's essentially channeling aliens, and like our whole logo, right, is reptilians and stuff. Oh, that's the most fascinating thing. So if you ever want to dive into some of that stuff at some point, I would definitely. The reptilians
are my number one enemy right now.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Like it's crazy.
We kill reptiles every night. That's our thing. I mean, seriously, big ones, little ones.
I've seen some shadow people. I saw a shadow person once. I bought a couple of them when I was 19. I was going through some shit, and it was real as anyone I physically met, and I saw it stand up and look down at me. Frightening experience. All the fans know I've told the story many times, but like I saw like a 7-foot tall shadow. I was stone sober, walked towards my door, looked down at me. It was fucking crazy, frightening.
Dude, I got finished telling you about this dew weapon thing at
Yeah.
the Getty.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what the psychics told me was there. Okay.
Yeah.
And bear in mind, we're using these psychics all the time to locate the nukes. All right.
Yeah.
And this thing here was connected to where they kept the nukes, and I'll explain to you the strategy. But supposedly, right underneath that thing is this big dew weapon that pops up. Okay. And it's obviously you can see it's got a real good position. It can survey. It's going to cover that little thing down there. There you go. That thing. I mean, you can see and then you look at the other side. There's one over there on the other side too.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that's supposed to be a helicopter port, but this thing here, that looks like a damn weapons turret. Anyway.
Yeah, weird.
Okay, so what they said is underneath the dew weapon is like a pod. Okay, because apparently this tube here, you see that how it's a circle down there where that weapon is thing, that tube goes all the way down like a mile past sea level. Okay, and what it does is essentially drops into the ocean underwater, and there's a tunnel. Supposedly, that's what they said. There's a tunnel from the bottom of there to go. So the idea is that if they're getting ready to blow this thing up, the last people to go before they blow it up are going to go into this pod underneath that circular thing, and this pod has actually ion drive technology, which is something that, of course, UFO type of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's how it goes up and down. Okay, so basically the pod is a UFO. It's a device that can fly underwater, do whatever, and take off and go to Mars if it wants to. But that's the escape pod. So the idea is before they set off the nuke, everybody piles into this thing, and they drop down to the ocean down below, and they escape out to the ocean through some big tunnel. And this is deeper than the base and everything else. But that's the idea.
That's weird. I had a dream about something like that once, dude.
There's another part of the story that's even weirder. Okay. But the person that discovered this and came back to me and told this was also the person that found the room that's just off to the side of this, which is really important. In this room, there were 6 portals. Okay, and portals that go to who knows where, right?
Yeah.
But they're not supposed to have these things. Okay, this is like a cosmic rule. You're not supposed to be doing that. We knew they had a portal at the very bottom of the Getty, because that's where they had their lizard interaction. But they had these 6 portals really close to the top, and we thought, what the hell was that all about? Well, what they did was they have this nuke, the device that we're looking for, and apparently they built it into a statue of some kind, a thing that looks like art, a piece of art.
Yeah.
And they had it in the middle of this room, and what they would do is every once in a while they would shove it in one of these portals like a damn shell game. And that's how they were hiding it from us, because we put all our resources into trying to locate this damn nuke, because we were trying to disable it, because that's one of the things we do. We disable nukes. I mean, I'll tell you, one of the first things that I found out when I was dealing with these Getty people, the NSA spook types, is that they had a real strong they wanted to know where all the suitcase nukes were. They were really concerned about rogue suitcase nukes coming into the country. They wanted psychics that could help locate these things. That was their big deal.
Yeah, we talked about Project Jedi and stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, funny you're talking to a Jedi, but we didn't. They're not trying to locate enemy nukes coming into the country. They're trying to see if we could find their nukes that they brought into the country, because they're the enemy. They're the fifth column. They're smuggling these nukes from Dimona and hiding them all over the country in these strategic places. But yeah. And here's the other thing that's real important you have to understand is the art collection here is priceless. It's one of the richest art foundations in the world. You can't even see all the art because most of it's underground in storage. And in the bunker system, what they do is there's like hundreds of these bunkers across the United States, and every one of them serves a purpose. And this particular bunker, its purpose is to be a repository of Western art and Western culture, and at the same time, it's also supposed to provide the throne for the crown. Because of course the crown goes back to the whole Magna Carta. The crown is in charge, and I'm not talking King Charles. I'm talking about the crown.
Yeah.
But yeah. So so in other words, of all the bunkers, this is the crown jewel, literally, of all the bunkers. And if you want to take them over, if you want to crush this evil once and for all, you need to storm the Bastille, take the crown, and assume the throne. And this is what Occupy the Getty is ultimately about. But what I want them to do is basically hand it over with no shots fired. Okay, that's what I want. They want to turn. I mean, they're trying to turn this movement into say that we're violent. We're not violent. We have no violence at all whatsoever in the 3D dimension that we're in right now. But if you talk about what we do in the spirit realm, call it what you will, astral, we're very violent, and that's just one of those things because in this business, that's where it's at. Okay.
Well, I feel like they feed off of that, right?
Well, yeah, the critters that live in that level, they feed off the lower level. That's, your adrenochrome is like a human equivalent to loosh. Loosh is what they really collect, and loosh, of course.
That's like psychic energy, right?
Yeah. Human negative emotional psychic energy. Negative human emotional psychic energy. Yeah, the bad stuff that you make when you're enraged or heartbroken or whatever.
Yeah, and look at the world that we live in. Everyone's crying because Trump got elected or whatever it might be. Like,
it's half and half. It's going to go one way or the other. It doesn't matter,
Yep, it doesn't matter. Yeah, some of these
let me just say this. You're going to be doing the protocols, okay? So I'm going to share something with you about the protocols. The final chapter in the protocols basically says that they're going to lead us from one disillusionment to another until we reach a point of our final disenchantment, at which point we will be ready for the Antichrist.
Yeah, and that's where they want to build a third temple and stuff. Like, and obviously Trump is a big Zionist. Like, he kisses Israel. He literally said he's going to throw. Trump's
going to be the big disillusionment.
Yeah, he wants to exterminate people that are anti-Semitic. He said he literally said that.
You see, people don't realize that Trump is of the same mafia as these guys in Kiev, the Chabad Jew. Trump is a Chabad Jew. People think he's Christian. It's like stupid Christians. He's like. I mean, don't get me wrong. Kamala was horrible, and I couldn't even the damage she would have done. But here's the thing: we had to choose between a Marxist, a really stupid Marxist,
I agree.
or a very clever mafioso.
Yeah,
now, we all would choose the mafioso, right?
That's what it is interesting, right? Because it's like people are like, well, what? It's this idea I hear all the time, especially in Canada.
Well, who do you choose? Karl Marx or Al Capone?
I know, right? And that's the thing of like vote for the lesser of two evils, and it's like, but they're both evil. Why are we doing this?
Well, I mean, and even if you confront and say, well, Trump molested these little girls and he was really hanging out with Epstein and blah 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 and everything else,
they don't want to hear it, man.
They'll say, well, he's changed now, and God uses the lower people to do His will and all that. Here's the thing, okay? Here's the thing for me, and this is why I have a different perspective on all this, is that I worked under Robert Vesco directly within, another head, okay? So that was the top of the mafia, world international mafia. Epstein was down there somewhere. William Barr was down there. Oliver North was down there. I mean, I was technically working for Oliver North, but I was hired by the number 2 guy. I had no clue. But the point is that Trump was a very big part of that mafia. So was Clinton. So was Bush. Every one of them. The U.S. government merged with the mafia completely during the time of Richard Nixon. Okay, up until that time, we had Jewish mafia and Italian mafia fighting it out, and that was
I heard about that recently.
Well, yeah, but see, those are your two parties right there.
Yeah.
You got the Republicans, which are basically the Jewish mafia, I guess, and you got the Democrats, which were the Italian mafia. But anyway, this all goes back to Dewey, when Dewey was running for president, and the birth of the CIA and shit. But again, the CIA, NSA, these are products of Intertel. It's not something that, when someone like, what's his name, Rockefeller, whoever, MJ12, these guys get together, it was because of this mafia. Okay,
Yeah.
it was Lucky Luciano started it. It was called the Corporation or something like that, and the CIA took it over when they threw Luciano in jail. They took it over, and it became the Mary Carter Payne Company, which became Resorts International, which was this big, huge conglomerate located all over the Bahamas, where they launder all the money, and the Jeffrey Epsteins and yada yada goes on. Just look at those islands. Look at who lives in those islands. They travel by boat. They travel by submarine. Ghislaine Maxwell, Biden, every single one of them was there. But Trump is very there. And the number one I say to anybody,
Masad Island,
is Resorts International. Robert Vesco was the CEO of Resorts International until he died in a Cuban prison. Thank you very much. And who took over after Robert Vesco? Who took over as CEO of Resorts International after Robert Vesco? I would assume it would be a pretty high-ranking mafioso, because obviously it's still Robert Vesco's operation.
Yeah.
So it had to be somebody high up in the operation. Guess who it was? It was Donald Trump.
And that's what it drives me crazy when, especially like Christians that like are trying to find the truth and want to be awake and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, he's the greatest. He's going to save us all. And this idea of putting like, Albert Pike said, they give him a hero, right?
Give them a hero. We will provide their hero. All right, here's the thing about the hero. And I hadn't even occurred to me. I mean, it started to occur to me when, Trump was running for president, that two things that happened. The first thing that happened was I came out in 2012 with the Getty stuff. I ran White House petitions that went to Obama and went to Trump. Trump shut down the petition page. He knew about this stuff. But what they tried to do, they tried to whitewash history. There's a lot of groups that are trying to hijack my mission. One is Save the Children. There's a couple of them like that. They have names that sound like they're involved in this stuff. But Allie Carter is another one. But what they did was they're trying to say that the tunnels were cleared out as of, or no, they're trying to say that I did not come out and say any of this to the public until after Trump was out of office, to suggest that, see, our whole movement now knows there's tunnels, knows there's children, knows all this stuff is going on, but we can't realize that Trump was in office when this was going on. So they're going to act like, and now they've moved it from whatever it was, 2020 or whatever, after he left office, to now. They're trying to say, oh, tunnels are clear. As soon as Trump comes back in, that's it. Military's going to move in, tunnels are clear.
That's like the QAnon shit. If like, oh, everyone's going to be safe. Yeah.
Same thing, man. I ran QAnon. Okay, I mean, I ran QAnon on Facebook.
I heard you talking about that.
They hated that, man. They hated it. They hate. I've got messages that were sent to some of my followers saying that I was a threat to the movement, and they needed to boot me somehow and help them take over the page and all this crap. I mean, and of course, Facebook took a big security breach, and 1.1 billion users had to log back in. That was all because of this, because of my page.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So so with the Getty, right? Like, because you started looking into all these underground tunnels and how they all connect and stuff like that. Because I've heard about all sorts of like bizarre things, going down this journey. I've been awake for like a long time. I've been looking at this stuff since I was like 16 or 17. And we'll get into some more of the tunnel thing, but do you believe that there's technology that they have? Because I've heard that like they can travel from like America to Australia within like seconds.
You're talking about physical tube train type stuff?
Yeah,
I'm just going to show you some books, okay? I know this is probably background.
Yeah.
Is it backwards?
No, it's good. I can see it. Yeah, underground bases and tunnels.
Okay, you want to know? This is actual documents, okay? Freedom of information stuff. You want to know about tunnels and all this crap? It's there. Here's another one. This Saunders guy. I haven't even read the books, but it's good that somebody went to the trouble to do this.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, guys like Phil Cooper and Bill Schneider have
Phil
been talking
Schneider.
about this for a long time, and they're both dead.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so they're one of the ones that woke me up. Bill Cooper was the first one. So
Behold
we
the Pale
knew
Horse.
even
I have that
back
book.
in 1996, Phil Schneider said there were 250 of these things across the country. Now in 93 is when I was really heavy. Well, 1990 was when I got in bed with the NSA. And then, I started with the CIA, I think it was in 78. Yeah, 78 was when I was my first exposure to the CIA. Saddam Hussein stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, but the point is that we already knew about it. But
Yeah.
being psychic, every time I got near this Getty, I'm like, wow, there is something really wrong with this place. And then we found out the truth. And people go, well, you don't have any proof. You don't have this. You don't have that. But for me, you want evidence. You look at how people react when you do something. And their reaction often says immense amounts of information. And for this case, we sent a remote viewer down under the Getty. The person was actually in New York, I think, when they did it. Or she might have come out to L.A. and did it. But she came back and told us everything, all the details, down to the very lowest level, down to the tunnels and where the tunnels went.
And
She
she's never been there, right?
She'd never been there. No, she did this at our bequest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the next day, I'm hearing all the report of what she said, and I'm thinking, holy shit, they're gonna kill me for sure now. I'm talking to my brother. I'm like, oh my God, we're dead. And I've had my life threatened many times, but I thought this time for sure this was too big. They're gonna kill us. And what happened was that they actually did freak out. The guys that were the controllers for this trust fund manager dude, they freaked out, and they got very angry, and they threatened the trust fund manager guy. They said, you got to drop these guys. You got to get away from them. You can't have anything to do with them. And he basically said, screw you. They're my people. You want me, they come with me. And then they had to work with us. Okay. That's when they knew that this guy wasn't going to stop talking to us. And they knew that we knew too much, basically. And they couldn't understand how we knew everything that we knew, because there was no physical way to know this stuff. Of course, it was psychic, channels and stuff like that. And this is years of this stuff building up, talking to Billy Meyer people and Palladians and
because they would be like, how would you know of this
Yeah.
or know of the underground, like any of that stuff, or if
All
you
the
knew
details.
the details that
Yeah.
you shouldn't know.
I know all the entrances, not just the entrances in the building itself, but the Playboy Mansion. Everybody knows about that. Jared Leto's house. That's not hard. It's there. Diddy's house. Yes, of course. All these Hollywood stars. Brad Pitt's house. I know.
Yeah,
people
because
who
you're
live across
saying
the
that
street.
like they're all interconnected. Because like I'd eventually like to do an episode just about the Playboy.
That's like
Mansion.
one big basement, basically.
And you see, like, there is just tunnels that you see that trucks are going into the underground all over, right? So that's just one example. Yeah.
They do it at the Getty. That's the trucks drive in a hole under the Getty, and they go right into a big elevator that holds a truck. A whole semi truck could go in one of those elevators.
And you see these in like massive like hills and stuff like that of like, especially in like Arizona and places like that where it's just like massive.
Check this out. This is big.
Yeah.
One of the first things that we learned about when we learned about the Getty and what it was attached to, the psychic person said, well, it's attached to all these stars' homes out in the hills. And then they also said, elite people. And then she said that there's also a big tunnel that goes straight to the Skirball Center, which is like 1.2 miles away. And the Skirball Center is the largest Jewish cultural center in the United States.
Oh, of course.
Okay, so now it has a direct, you can drive a car from point A to point B tunnel connection to the Getty. Go figure, right? Mm-hmm. And there's all kinds of crazy temples and stuff across the street. But here's the other thing. When I told you about the business with the QAnon, when they attacked me with the QAnon thing, I went on the attack on them and, one by one took them out and all that. But it led me to this guy in Encino who was a talent manager. You probably heard this story already. But he ran all these talent comedians like Drew Carey and people like that, a bunch of people, and all of them and this is where these guys would hang out. But he had a bar that they actually did satanic rituals at. They called it the Lizard Bar. Yeah, and so all
That's
these
wild,
people,
man.
Oh, and I've got even more crazy stories because it's like these guys, I had previous experience with these people from a comedian that I knew that they were trying to offer up as a sacrifice, and I had to help her get out of that situation. So I knew about it already.
That's crazy.
And then I find out that they're involved in the plot to get me kicked off of, QAnon. And this woman, the comedian, she still talks to these guys, and she says, "Oh, this is not going to end well for you." But it didn't. But we found out that house where this stuff was going on, the owner of it, the Satanist dude, thinks he's a wizard. He actually owned two houses right next to each other. And the one house was on paper supposedly belonged to a Netflix executive, but it really belonged to him. You could see there was no property line between the two houses.
Yeah.
And it had an entrance in the garage that went underground. It went directly to the Skirball Center. Okay. And there's a famous incident of a woman who crashed her car up. She drove up the fire road on the Getty and crashed her car on the famous steps right there. And she got out. When they took her away, she was screaming that she had to get into the bunker. And, of course, they'll change the story around. When I first heard the story, it was from the trust fund manager. He said, it was some crazy Christian person. I thought, yeah. Turned out it was a member of this cult that worked at this Encino place. And her husband was a comedian on Saturday Night Live, and he died, probably a ritual sacrifice.
Yeah.
And when that happened, she got kicked out of the club. And she freaked out because it's like she was like Prince Harry. She couldn't get into the royal bunker anymore.
Yeah.
You know that Meghan Markle screws Gordon Getty at 90 years old so that Prince Harry can get access to under the Getty?
I'm sure. I think they're all involved and all are making shady deals and doing weird satanic rituals and prostituting themselves and God knows what. And that's what's crazy about them calling it the Lizard Bar and them being connected to probably things that are outside of our eyesight and then conjuring up, doing things like chaos magic and all sorts of shit to conjure up these entities. Who God knows if they're speaking to them or if they're being influenced them. I'm sure they are.
Well, they love Satan, that's for sure. But I'll tell you who else was involved in that little episode. Roger Stone, of course, he was involved. Roger Stone was like the lead man on this thing. And then after him came Alex Jones. I know a lot of people think this is nutty, but the connection to Alex Jones was super obvious because one of the guys I was dealing with was this MK Ultra character that they were using, and his dad was good friends with Alex. Okay, so what they did when Alex and Roger Stone got together, they said, "Okay, we need this guy to do this, to be this face of such and such," and they used this MK Ultra kid of this, and this guy's name. Patrick Moore, I think. Yeah, that's his name, Patrick Moore. And this guy was the face of the Occupy movement. He was the face of the legalized marijuana movement. And he tried to be the face of the Mayflower movement in QAnon. And he's also trying to be the face of the anti-human trafficking movement. But these are Satanists doing this crap.
Yeah, of course. Well, they disguise themselves in the best way to hide is in plain sight.
Kind of like our president.
Yeah. The best way to hide is in plain sight, right? And and they do this. And even Ashton Kutcher, I think, was just involved with the P. Diddy stuff. And then he fronts as this guy that's trying to fight against trafficking and stuff. And they all do this.
All right, let me take this another direction. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, I want you guys, if you're listening to this show, okay, it's probably too late, but if because I'm doing a show tonight, and I'm doing a show on here it comes, people.
Yeah.
El Dorado County, California.
Yeah.
And this is, if you don't know anything about it, the El Dorado County is where the gold rush happened. There's Placer County, El Dorado County. Anyway, the city seat of El Dorado County is a town called Placerville. It used to be called Hangtown. Okay?
Yeah.
It's still a hang town. Everything's corrupt. It's mafia is all hell. And it's also a center for human trafficking, big time, because it's the corridor between Reno and Sacramento. 50 freeway right there. They control it. Okay, so the sheriffs, they let the mafia bring the children and the girls up and down that freeway. But the thing, and that gets, I mean, I got stories about guys like the controller, the county controller, who having sex parties and injuring children and getting employees pregnant. I got all kinds of crazy
Well, the
stuff.
like people that are behind foreign immigration and stuff like that, they're involved with child trafficking. Like they're all interconnected, and people don't realize how
The
deep these
point
tunnels
that,
go.
that you're talking about, how they hide behind it. Okay, this
Yeah.
particular part of the world is famous for some very large busts for pedophilia, and like Elizabeth Smart, that's a big famous story. But these all happen in this county, and you wonder. They go, yeah, we put all this money into combating human trafficking, but they only do that to hide from their own crimes.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I'm sure they do all that. And that's what's crazy too, is like they have to hide in plain sight. And you see this where they're definitely like all these children that went missing at the border. There's like 80,000 children, and that's just scratching the surface, I believe. What do you think about Alex Collier, the guy in 1994? He was calling out the reptilian stuff and how there's children going missing every year. What do you think about how his interview went and his whole exposure of the reptilians?
First of all, I don't base any of my material on anything anyone else said, except for maybe Phil Schneider. And I only saw that interview that you're talking about relatively recently.
Yeah,
because somebody asked me. They asked me the same question. What do you think about this? And I listened to him, and I thought, for the most part, he was very accurate. Mm-hmm. But it's just like Phil Schneider or Bill Cooper or whatever. When they describe this stuff, they do it from their own perspective, and it comes kind of out that way. And so, for instance, a lot of people like to say dimension. Okay, that's sure, there are dimensions, but there's also densities, and densities are the thing that nobody talks about. And until you understand the mechanics of the densities, you can't understand all this, the mechanics of the universe. And this is really important if you're trying to understand space travel and what. It's actually the nature. It's the quantum. I talk a little bit about quantum computing, because the effort to create quantum computers is basically the effort to create interstellar travel, time travel, interdimensional travel, and the ability to create matter out of nothing. That kind of thing. I mean, it's all there, and they've been working towards this for a long time. It's incredibly scary because humans are still pretty savage to have that kind of power. And I'll tell you, I invented something that the Bilderbergers put a hit out on me. But it was I figured out how to put a scalar program on a laser and essentially make like a lightsaber or something like that.
That's crazy. When I was 7 years old, I prayed for a lightsaber.
It's not what you think it is, man.
No.
Okay, let me tell you the secret of a lightsaber. Okay. A lightsaber basically disintegrates anything it touches. Anything. Yeah. But it has a program built into it so it won't disintegrate you.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right. In other words, it's all frequencies and stuff like that, and you have a specific frequency, so you insert that into the system, the program, and it'll exclude you from its ability to cut.
What what do you think is the ultimate goal of like some of these people in the underground tunnels? Because it's a way of escape. It's a way of trafficking people with adrenochrome. Like, if you want to dive into anything, like I'm all ears for even some of the more like sadistic, crazy stuff that you've either know about or have heard about or seen.
You want to hear sadistic, crazy stuff? Oh God! All right. Because I was going to go highbrow here for a second, but
yeah, you can go any direction you want. I was just saying.
Right, remind me to get back to the sadistic, crazy stuff, but we'll start out with the good stuff. Okay, again, my mission is peaceful. Okay, it's like it's almost like messianic type of thing, because they want to come home. When we talk about these guys underground, these wicked people that are doing all this stuff, have sold their souls. I mean, they've literally sold their souls. They would do anything to get that soul back and to be able to rejoin us as humans. And they'd give anything to not have that fear of what they deserve and what they're going to get and the power that their masters hold over them. Because remember, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. We're fighting fucking
spiritual
Dracos
world.
and Greys and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Pardon my French, but
No, I swear all the time on the show. It's fine.
yeah. Okay. Well, okay. So the point is that we have to be elevated humans to do this. And we have to convince them that we are elevated humans and not savages, and that we're actually more elevated than they are, or they will never give up to us, because they know that this power they have is immense. But at the same time, they're also doing everything they do because of a fear of the demons that they've let become their masters, such as these Draco types. And
To become
that's
gods
why,
of this reality, so to speak, right?
yeah, they're of the higher level, the density just above us, number 4. That's why they use these portals to go back and forth. But they can also, there's all kinds of humans running around that are, I don't know what you call it. I don't know if I call them clones or whatever, but they're
Hybrid
damn
kind of.
shapeshifters, hybrid, whatever. They're reptiles. Okay, I've had at least 2 of them in my life. They're pretty easy to spot because they're not really good at being human.
No, I had there's a buddy I've done shows with, and he was just during COVID or whatever, and he was at some festival, and he saw someone pull down their mask, and their like face shapeshifted into like a snake. It looked like it had scales and stuff. It was just so quick, and he was like, I couldn't not deny that I saw, because he's like, I saw what I saw.
Yeah. Well, that happens, and usually when that happens, it's because they want you to see it.
Because he looked at him, and that's like, I was like, frightening, man.
Well, he got a little. They feed off people. They go to bars and stuff like that where people are,
Makes sense, actually.
making a lot of loosh, and they feed off that. So yeah,
it's
vampires.
crazy.
They're vampires.
The energy vampires, right?
Yeah,
So,
totally.
how far do you think this stuff goes in what they're doing to these children and to people to get out this adrenochrome? Because there's a lot of like obviously crazy things that are happening in the world and satanic rituals, and I think they like periodically kill celebrities and all that stuff to like feed these demons, this demiurge, whatever it is, right?
Well, loosh collection is number 1. Okay, number 1. It's the spice. Okay.
Yeah.
They want the loosh. And we do everything we can to stop it, and our efforts are starting to pay off, and the spice production is decreasing, if you will. But so that hurts. But what happens when that happens is it's kind of like the Nazis in the final days. They start gorging and try to get as much as they can. Like the free lunch is almost over, so they're trying to get as much as they can. So unfortunately, one of the side effects of our victory is that they're going to try to kill as many as possible before that comes. And the thing is industrial. It's industrial is the best way to describe it. And it's a lot of people think of this when they think of this human trafficking, that they think with their genitals, and they think that this is just about sex. And no, it's not. A lot of these children that are abducted and go into this stuff, they're never abused sexually at all. I mean, they could be tortured and stuff, but that's like usually psychological torture. Having to watch another child getting eaten by a dog, thinking you're going to be the next child to get eaten, have the dog in your face, breathing on you, and just waiting to die, kind of thing. They do that a lot. That's a children and dogs. Okay,
because they're feeding off that energy.
Yes.
Too.
Okay. You want to know? You want to get? This is the sort of thing that people don't want to hear.
I want to hear it. Like, I think people should hear how bad it